The Quran is pointing out that people are not able to get guidance from these ayat, but he's not saying the problem is a knowledge deficiency. The problem is a moral deficiency. The problem is a spiritual deficiency. The problem is a character deficiency, not an intellectual deficiency. Why did Allah say that? Allah was talking to ulama of Bani Israel who have zero knowledge deficiency. In fact, they were extremely intellectual. In fact, they were so intellectual, they recognized the Rasul of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well as they would recognize their own children. كما يعرفون أبناءهم. They recognize knowledge was not the problem. Something else is the problem. So when we go around telling the ummah needs knowledge, the ummah needs knowledge, the ummah needs knowledge, bro, what Quran are you reading? We don't just need knowledge. We don't just need knowledge. There needs to be knowledge education, but there needs to be character building also. Give it whatever name you want to give it. Call it tazkiyah, call it tarbiyah, call it akhlaq, whatever you want to call it. But there needs to be character transformation. And that's not the same as education. Yeah, let's be real about this. How many youth here ever been to Sunday school? Sunday school? Okay, some of you have done time. Okay. All right. So you've been to Sunday school, you have a 1 hour lesson on akhlaq, kindness to parents, respect for elders, etc., etc. You're learning about manners. You're learning about it. That's still education. And then you get a true false question or a quiz at the end. And there's a kid who got 100 on the test, on the akhlaq test. On the akhlaq test. And that same kid is bullying other kids in the break. And that same kid is talking back to the teacher. And that same kid is yelling at his mother, even though he got 100 on the what test? The akhlaq test. But they're teaching akhlaq. How come he's not? Because we still think that character will come through knowledge. Just the moment you have knowledge, everything will be good. Who said? Who said? Iblis didn't have knowledge? Iblis is pretty knowledgeable. He's got a lot of knowledge of history. He was actually there. I think he knows the story of Adam alayhi salam better than you and me because he was part of the story. And he knows the seerah better than you and I. Why? Because he was there. He was there. He knows the stories of the prophets better than any of us can. He knows the angels better than we do. Why? He's hung out with them before. There's no shortage of knowledge. As we study Surah Al-Baqarah, we'll find Allah will acknowledge the depth of the knowledge of the Israelites. The depth of their knowledge. In fact, one of the names of them in the Quran is Al-Ahbar. Not in this surah, in another surah, Al-Ahbar. Al-Ahbar comes from Hibr, which means ink. Which means they spend their entire lives opening up scrolls and closing scrolls, and their fingers are always covered in ink. These are people of ink, right? That's how much knowledge they have. With that in mind, understand what is Allah saying about people who will not be able to benefit from the examples in the Quran, from the lessons of the Quran. Who will be these people? Al-Fasiqeen. Let's figure out who they are. Allah will give us the definition in the next ayah. الَّذِينَ يَنْقُضُونَ عَهْدَ اللَّهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مِيثَاقِهِ. Those who violate the promise made with Allah even after it had been made binding. Whoa. We already made a promise with Allah and it was already binding. And Allah says there are people who break that promise. And I'm sitting there going, what promise did I make? I didn't make a promise. What promises is referring to? And then you find a couple of ayat later, the story of Adam begins. And by the end of that story, Allah says, فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Whoever follows my guidance will have no fear or shall not grieve. And whoever denies and calls my revelations a lie, those are the people in hellfire, in which they will remain. There was a binding agreement taken from the story of Adam alayhi salam applying to all of his children, including ourselves, and Allah is saying that is the agreement that still holds for every human being. Whenever I send guidance, you'll take it seriously. The first definition of the corrupt is they don't care about their relationship with the guidance of Allah. Listen to me carefully about this one. If you remember nothing else, I know that's easy for you to remember nothing else. Just remember this one. Our relationship with Allah is equal to our relationship with the guidance sent by Allah. I'll say that again. Our relationship with Allah is equal to our relationship with the guidance sent by Allah.